Carbon trading. Carbon trading is the process of buying and selling permits and credits that allow the permit holder to emit carbon dioxide. The world's biggest carbon trading system is the European Union's emissions trading system. The model used in all current carbon trading schemes is called cap and trade. In a cap and trade scheme, a government acts an overall legal limit on emissions over a special period of time and grants a fixed number of permits to those releasing the emissions. A polluter must hold enough permits to cover the emissions it releases. Each permit in the existing carbon trading scheme is considered equivalent to 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. Carbon trading starts formally in the 1997 under the United Nations Kyoto Protocol on Climate Change. Features of carbon trading. Carbon trading is a common method that countries utilize it in order to meet their reduction of carbon emissions. Carbon trading, a country having more emissions of carbon is able to purchase the right to emit more, and a country having less emissions trades the right to emit carbon to other countries. More carbon emitting countries, by this way, try to keep the limit of carbon emissions specified to them. Carbon trading is administered by a central authority such as a government or international organization that sets a limit on the amount of carbon dioxide that can be limited. Examples of carbon trading are Australia carbon pricing mechanism, European Union emissions trading scheme, then the Japan voluntary emission trading scheme, Republic of Korea's emission trading scheme, and Switzerland Swiss emission trading scheme, India Power Guda in Andhra Pradesh, Handia forest in Madhya Pradesh. Carbon credits. In detail, carbon credits are a market-based mechanism for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They represent a way for business, governments, and individuals to offset their carbon emissions by investing in projects that reduce emissions elsewhere. A carbon credit represents a right to emit 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide or an equivalent amount of another greenhouse gas, such as methane or nitrous oxide, and is typically bought and sold on carbon markets. The process works as follows. Entities that reduce their carbon emission below a certain level can earn carbon credits, which they can then sell to others who need to offset their emissions. This creates an incentive for companies to reduce their carbon emissions and invest in renewable energy and other low carbon technologies. The concept of carbon credits is based on the idea that atmosphere is shared resource and that emissions reduction in one location can offset emissions elsewhere. The goal is to create a financial incentive for business and individuals to reduce their carbon footprint and invest in cleaner technologies. Carbon credits have been criticized by some for allowing companies to continue emitting greenhouse gases while buying offsets rather than making substantial changes to their operations. Others argue that carbon credits can be a useful tool for encouraging emissions reductions and promoting sustainable development. Now let's learn about the advantages and disadvantages of carbon credits. So next one is the carbon trading. Carbon trading is a market-based mechanism for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It allows companies and countries to buy and sell permits or allowances to emit a certain amount of carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases within a set period. Under a carbon trading system, a regulatory authority sets a limit on the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions that are allowed and then distributes emission permits or allowances to companies or countries. Those that emit less than their allotted amount can sell their unused permits to those that need more, creating a market for carbon credits. The idea behind carbon trading is to create a financial incentive for companies to reduce their carbon emissions by making it more expensive to pollute. The cost of buying permits can provide an incentive for companies to invest in clean energy and other low carbon technologies. Carbon trading has been implemented in a number of countries and regions, including the European Union, California, and China. However, there are criticisms that carbon trading can be subject to manipulation and fraud, and that it does not do enough to encourage emissions reductions or addresses the root cause of Root causes of climate change. Despite these concerns, carbon trading remains a popular tool for addressing climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of carbon trading? Carbon trading is a market based mechanism for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Here are some advantages and disadvantages of carbon trading. Advantages: encourage emission reductions. Carbon trading provides a financial incentive for companies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Companies that can reduce emissions below their assigned level can sell their surplus allowances to companies that are unable to reduce their emissions below their assigned level. This is a cost effective method. Carbon trading can be a cost effective way to achieve emissions reductions, as companies that can reduce emissions at a lower cost can sell their surplus allowances to companies that face higher costs to reduce their emissions. Promote innovation. Carbon trading can promote innovation by providing financial incentives for companies to develop and implement new technologies and practices that help reduce emissions. Next is the global cooperation. Carbon trading provides a mechanism for global cooperation on climate change mitigation by allowing developed countries to invest in emission reduction projects in developing countries. Disadvantages are complex market. The carbon market may be complex and difficult to navigate, particularly for smaller companies or organizations. Market fluctuations are happening. The value of carbon allowances can fluctuate based on changes in supply and market demand, which can make it difficult for companies to plan and budget for their emission reduction efforts. Additionality is happening. The concept of additionality, which requires that emission reduction projects go beyond what would have happened anyway, can be subject to proof, which can lead to uncertainty and lack of trust in the carbon market. Limited impact is happening. While carbon trading can promote emission reductions in specific projects or industries, it may not be sufficient to address the scale of emissions reductions needed to address climate change. Some criticisms of offsetting. Some critics argue that carbon trading promotes the idea that emissions can be offset through carbon reduction projects rather than addressing the root causes of emissions through structural changes in the economy. Overall, carbon trading can provide benefits in terms of encouraging emission reductions, promoting innovation and global cooperation, but they also have limitations and potential drawbacks that need to be carefully considered.